Before we dive into this story that's sure to move you, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It might seem like a small thing, but that simple action makes a huge difference. It's what keeps this channel going and gives me the strength to keep bringing these stories to you. Now take a deep breath, because what comes next is powerful. Rain poured over the quiet cemetery as a frail teenage girl, soaked and shivering, stood silently by a tombstone that read, Maya Takeda, beloved mother. Her fists clenched, eyes burning with grief and rage. Behind her, a group of towering men from the town's infamous martial arts school laughed cruelly. "What's this? The stick girl thinks she's gonna avenge someone?" One sneered. Another chuckled. "Careful, she might blow away in the wind." But she said nothing, just stared at her mother's grave with unwavering focus. "I swear I'll make them pay, Mom, even if it kills me." At the Iron Fist dojo, where muscle and intimidation ruled, the men trained in packs, grunting, sweating, boasting. A flyer fluttered in through the open door. "Open challenge. Prove your worth in combat. Prize. Access to the champion's circle." Laughter erupted. "Who even printed this joke?" one said. Then the door creaked. Standing there, drenched and trembling, was the girl they'd mocked. "I'm here to challenge the champion," she said, voice steady. The room fell into silence. Then explosive laughter. "You? The win might win before you do." But one man, Kai, the dojo's youngest star and undeniably handsome, didn't laugh. His sharp eyes studied her closely. She wasn't trembling from fear. It was control, suppression, like a storm waiting to break. "Let her speak," he said, silencing the others. She stepped forward, eyes fixed on the largest man in the room, Torin, the reigning champion. "You broke my mother's ribs 10 years ago. You laughed while she bled." Torin shrugged, amused. "And? She shouldn't have challenged a man." Her voice sharpened. "Neither should you have underestimated her daughter." Gasps rippled through the room. Even the cockiest fighters looked uneasy now. "Wait, her mom was that Takeda?" one whispered. Torin snorted, stepping forward, his chiseled body gleaming with sweat. "Your mom was a joke, and so are you." She didn't flinch. "Then prove it. Fight me." The others burst into renewed laughter, but Kai kept watching. Not her frame, her stance, her breathing. He muttered under his breath, "That's not a street kid's posture, that's trained." The dojo master scoffed. "We don't fight children." She looked up. "Cowards don't fight threats." In the shadows of the dojo, an elderly man stood quietly. His eyes widened as he recognized the girl's technique. That's the ghost form, a style lost to time, taught only to the elite of a hidden assassin sect. But how? The girl had no scars, no medals, no history. Just bones, silence, and eyes that remembered pain. Torin cracked his knuckles. "Fine. 1 minute in the ring. You get knocked out, you leave. Forever." The girl nodded once. No fear. Just fire. The men circled. The bell rang. She didn't move. Not yet. Torin lunged like a lion. Her body
missed.
slipped beneath his fist like water. One move, 2 strikes, a breath, a twist, crack. His knee buckled. The room went dead silent. "What the hell?" someone muttered. She moved again. This time faster, controlled, like she'd practiced this sequence 1,000 times. Torin roared, humiliated, swinging wildly. She leapt, spun, and dropped him with a single palm to the chest. His breath left him like a balloon popped with a blade. The silence was deafening. Then someone whispered, "Who is she?" She stood over Torin's unconscious body, chest rising gently, eyes calm, not a trace of gloating. Just closure. One of the men tried to laugh it off. "She got lucky." But even he couldn't meet her gaze. Kai stepped forward, his voice low. "That was no accident. That was execution." She turned to him, not as an enemy, but as someone searching for understanding. "I didn't come here to win your approval. I came to break a chain." The dojo master approached, stunned. "Who trained you?" Her answer was quiet. "My mother, while she was dying." Flashback. A dim room. Her mother, Maya Takeda, lay bleeding, whispering secrets between coughs. "You must survive." Hide your strength. One day, they'll forget you. That's when you strike. The little girl wept beside her, memorizing movements instead of lullabies. Each memory etched into her bones like a weapon. Back in the present, the men around her lowered their heads, not out of shame, but reverence. One of them stepped forward, removing his gloves. I was wrong. You're not weak. You're terrifying. She said nothing. Her silence was power. Kai followed her outside, rain falling softly now. You're not done, are you? He asked. She didn't answer, just walked, but he stayed close. Who else are you hunting? She finally turned to him. The ones who cheered. The ones who watched her die and laughed. He hesitated, then said, Then let me help you. Her eyes narrowed. Why? He paused. Because I was one of them. I was there, and I've hated myself ever since. Her stare lingered, then softened. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. They walked through the city's underbelly, alleys reeking of sweat, blood, and betrayal. Kai led the way now, guiding her to an old warehouse where the real monsters trained in secret. This is where they meet, he whispered. The Black Gauntlet, underground fighters. No rules, no mercy. She stared at the door, unmoved. Do they remember her? Kai nodded. They remember beating her. They just don't know what that cost them. She inhaled deeply. Then let's remind them. In that moment, she wasn't the skinny girl anymore. She was a reckoning. Inside, the Black Gauntlet fighters were roaring with laughter and drink until the door creaked. All eyes turned. Silence fell as she entered, slim, calm, radiant in her defiance. One of them laughed loudly. You lost, sweetheart? Another added, Careful, boys. She might throw a punch and break her wrist. But their leader, a brutal, scar-faced man named Dagon, narrowed his eyes. No, I know that face. He stood up slowly, towering over her. You look like someone I once hurt. She met his stare. You didn't hurt her. You ended her. And now I end you. The room erupted, not in chaos, but shock. Dagon smirked, throwing off his coat, revealing a body carved like granite. So the lamb grew claws. She bowed slightly. I don't need claws. I've got precision. The fight began. He came at her like a freight train, but she flowed like silk. Duck, strike, twist, pressure point, blood, screams, gasps. Every move she made told a story of pain passed down through generations. Dagon landed one punch, barely, but her comeback was poetry. A knee to his jaw that dropped him like a statue crumbling. Dagon groaned on the floor, spitting blood, eyes wide with disbelief. What? What are you? He coughed. She stepped over him, emotionless. Justice, memory, and your consequence. Then she turned to the others, frozen in place. Anyone else laugh when she screamed for help? One man raised his hand slowly, trembling. I didn't know. She walked past him without a word, mercy in silence. As she reached the door, a young fighter, barely older than a boy, whispered, She fights like a ghost. Another added, No, she fights like someone with nothing left to lose. Kai met her outside, jaw tense, but awe in his eyes. That was the man who started it all? She nodded. He was the last one who laid hands on her. Kai took a deep breath. Then it's over. She turned away, voice bitter. Over? That was the easy part. Pain is loud, grief is quieter, and it never ends. He walked closer, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. She didn't answer, but she didn't pull away either. If the world can forget a life, then I'll make them remember with blood. The next morning, news spread across town like wildfire. Skinny girl defeats underground champion. Mysterious fighter linked to Takeda tragedy. The Iron Fist dojo watched the footage in stunned silence. Even the master who mocked her rubbed his temples in disbelief. She wasn't a student. She was the test. One by one, the men began training again, but different, slower, more humble. Outside, kids gathered, mimicking her movements. She had become more than a fighter. She was a myth. And somewhere far from the crowd, she whispered at her mother's grave, they don't laugh anymore. Weeks passed. She stayed hidden, never seeking fame, only balance. Yet whispers followed her everywhere. They called her the Featherblade, not for her size, but for the way she cut through giants like wind. One afternoon, a girl approached her in the market. Barely 12, bruised, silent. She pressed a folded paper into her hand. "They hurt my sister," it read. No name, no plea, just pain. The girl nodded once. She understood. You're not invisible, not anymore. And so the cycle began again. Not revenge, but protection. A silent guardian with a deadly memory. Kai joined her more often now. He didn't fight for her. He fought with her. In the nights, they trained. In the days, they searched for injustice, quietly correcting it. "You know," he said one evening as they rested beneath a bridge, "you're more than what they did to her. You've become hope." She looked at him, weary, but sincere. "Hope is just a scar with purpose." He smiled. "Then let's give that scar a story worth remembering." She didn't smile often, but this time she did. For a second, the weight on her heart lifted. Eventually, the remaining factions came for her. They didn't want justice. They wanted fear back. She faced them at dusk. 10 men, all trained, all armed. Kai tried to stand beside her. She stopped him. "This one's mine." They circled her like wolves. "You're finished, girl," one growled. She closed her eyes. "I was finished the day she died. This is rebirth." They attacked as one. But she moved like breath, like memory, like purpose, forged in silence. One by one they fell, not with rage, but precision. Like each strike honored a story never told. By the time the last man hit the ground, the street was quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. She stood alone, her chest rising and falling, a single cut dripping down her cheek like a tear. Kai rushed to her side, breathless. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Not anymore." He looked around at the fallen bodies. "They'll come again." She nodded. "Then let them." "I'm not hiding who I am." For the first time, her pain had become her armor, and her story, her weapon. This is how you kill a legacy, by becoming stronger than it. That night, under a sky filled with stars, she sat at the edge of the rooftop, legs swinging over the city she once feared. Kai sat beside her, quiet. "You know," he said, "when I first saw you, I thought you were breakable." She raised an eyebrow. "I was." He looked at her gently. "Not anymore." Silence passed between them, warm and full. "Why did you stay?" she asked. He didn't hesitate. "Because I believe in what you are." She turned to him. "And what's that?" His answer was soft. Unfinished hope. The next morning, children trained outside the dojo. Boys, girls, bruised and brave. Inspired not by trophies, but by her silence and her storm. Inside, the old master placed a small plaque on the wall. "In honor of Maya Takeda, and the daughter who reminded us what strength really looks like." When she arrived, no one bowed out of fear. They bowed out of respect. A student looked up at her, eyes shining. "Will you teach us?" She knelt beside him. "Only if you're ready to learn that fighting isn't about hurting people. It's about protecting them." The dojo had changed. It no longer echoed with arrogance, but with purpose. Laughter returned, but this time it was kinder. During a quiet moment, she walked past the trophy wall and paused at a dusty photo. Her mother, strong, proud, smiling with bruised knuckles. She touched the frame gently. "You taught me to be invisible, but now I see you in every step I take." That night, she lit a single candle at the altar. "I didn't just avenge you, Mom. I became the warrior you wanted to be." The flame flickered, as if it answered. Elsewhere, word reached the underworld. A syndicate leader scowled as he read a report. "Featherblade dismantles second gang. No survivors." He turned to his lieutenant. "We have a problem. This girl's not just a fighter, she's a movement." The man nodded. "She's stirring up the weak, making them believe." The leader crushed the paper in his fist. "Then break her spirit, find something she loves, and destroy it." In a shadowed corner, a figure in a dark coat listened, silent, patient, waiting. Because even in the deepest evil, someone always fears the girl who never runs. She returned to the market one day, the same stall where she met the little girl with the bruises. But the stall was empty, abandoned. Something was wrong. A folded note lay on the ground, stained with dirt. "They know about you. They took her." Her hands trembled, but her heart was steel. "No more children vanish." Kai appeared beside her, already armed. "Where?" She didn't look at him, just whispered, "Where they think no one dares go." He nodded. "Then let's go where fear ends." And together, they stepped into the lion's den. The warehouse reeked of sweat and cruelty. In the center, the little girl was tied to a chair, surrounded by 6 towering men with scarred knuckles and cold grins. "Bring her in!" one of them barked. The doors opened. She walked in alone, unarmed, calm. "You must be the ghost," one sneered. "Good. I've always wanted to kill a legend." She glanced at the girl, shaking, wide-eyed, then back at them. "Legends don't die," she said. "They multiply." Behind her, Kai crashed through a window, fists flying. The ambush turned into chaos and then into justice. She moved through them like water through cracks, fast, clean, unforgiving. Every hit told a story. Every block whispered, "Not this time." Blood stained the concrete, but her eyes never left the girl. One man lunged with a blade, too slow. She disarmed him, then struck with surgical precision. He dropped. The others panicked. "She's just one girl," one screamed, but no one dared rush her. Not now. Because in that moment, she wasn't skinny. She wasn't weak. She was wrath, trained by memory, driven by loss. "You don't win by being feared," she said. "You win by never running." She untied the girl, holding her close. "You're safe now." The child looked up at her, tearful. "Will I ever be strong like you?" She paused, brushing the hair from her face. "You already are." Then she turned to the last man standing, the leader, trembling with a pistol in hand. "Stay back," he yelled. She stepped forward. "You think power comes from pain? But real power is who you protect with it." The gun fired. Once. But Kai was faster. He tackled the man to the ground, rage in every blow. "Don't touch her!" Police sirens howled in the distance. Kai stood over the unconscious man, chest heaving, fists bloodied. She walked to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. He looked at her, eyes wild. "It'll never be over, not while there are more like him." She nodded. "Then we keep going, one by one." The girl clung to her leg, silent but safe. The officers rushed in, stunned by the scene. Bodies, blood, a girl holding a child. "Who did this?" one asked. She didn't answer, just looked down and whispered, "A mother's daughter." News of the rescue spread fast. "Unknown woman saves abducted child. Vigilante strikes again." The city buzzed with awe and confusion. But for her, none of it mattered. She sat beneath a tree outside the dojo, the little girl asleep in her lap. Kai approached, holding 2 cups of tea. "You okay?" She nodded. "It's the first time I've held someone and felt peace." He smiled gently. "You're building something now, not just destroying the past." She looked at him. "I never knew what healing looked like until today." That night, she stood before a new class of students, girls and boys wide-eyed and eager. She raised her voice for all to hear. "You are not weak. You are not forgotten. And you are not alone." Her voice trembled, not with fear, but with feeling. "They laughed at me, called me nothing. But every time I got knocked down, I remembered one thing. My mom didn't raise a victim. She raised a fighter." The room fell silent. Then, applause. Slow at first, then rising like a wave. And in that moment, she knew. This was just the beginning. Later that week, she returned to her mother's grave, the dojo's youngest students trailing behind her in quiet reverence. She placed a single white flower at the stone and knelt. "They know your name now," she whispered. "Not because I screamed it, but because I lived it." Behind her, the kids bowed. One whispered, "She was a warrior, right?" She turned, eyes misty but proud. She was more. She was love that fought back. The wind picked up, brushing through the trees like her mother's spirit had heard, and smiled. A reporter cornered Kai outside the dojo days later. Who is she? What's her real name? He chuckled, leaning against the wall. She's the girl they laughed at. And now? The reporter asked. Kai's smile faded into something serious. Now she's the girl no one underestimates. Is she dangerous? Kai nodded. Only to those who hurt the innocent. The reporter paused. Is it true she was trained by assassins? Kai's voice dropped. She was trained by pain. That's stronger than any army. The reporter fell silent. Some stories don't need embellishment, just truth. That evening, under the soft lantern lights of the dojo, she sat with Kai and the children around a fire. They roasted simple food, laughed loudly, told stories not of war but of dreams. One little boy looked up at her and asked, "Will you ever stop fighting?" She thought about it for a long moment. Maybe, but not until every kid can walk home without fear, Kai added. And not until every skinny girl who's been laughed at knows she's powerful. The flames crackled, the laughter grew, and hope, once broken, was now alive and glowing. The next morning, a new student stood outside the dojo gates, tall, muscular, and arrogant. "I'm here to challenge the Featherblade," he said smugly. Inside, she was sweeping the floor, dressed simply, quietly humming. One of the students ran in. "Sensei, someone's here to fight you." She didn't even look up. "Let him wait." The boy blinked. "For how long?" She smiled faintly. "Until he realizes this place isn't about proving strength. It's about earning it." Outside, the man waited, and slowly, uncertainly, sat down. The first lesson had already begun. Later that day, she passed by a mirror in the hallway. For a second, she paused. The girl who once stood there, frail, scared, silent, was gone. In her place stood a warrior with scars, stories, and eyes that had seen death but chose life. She touched the glass gently. "Mom, I became everything they said I couldn't be." Behind her, Kai appeared, wrapping a soft towel around her shoulders. "You still have more to become." She nodded. "Then let's begin again. Some battles never end, but neither does strength born from love." And so the legend of the Featherblade grew, not through titles or trophies, but through lives changed. The dojo, once filled with noise and ego, was now a sanctuary of resilience. Kids trained not to conquer others, but to conquer their own fear. And in the heart of it all stood the girl who had once been laughed at, the girl no one believed in, the girl who avenged her mother not with revenge, but with a legacy. And every time someone doubted her again, she would smile and whisper, "They laughed once. They won't laugh twice." If this story moved you in any way, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Honestly, every like, every subscription is what keeps this channel breathing. Without your support, it's nearly impossible to keep going. So if you can help, know that this only exists because of you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for staying until the end. I'll see you in the next story.